Flooding continues to be a major issue in Broadview Heights, with residents complaining of flooded basements and homes. Is this a city issue, or is this the residents' responsibility? And what can be done to improve stormwater overflows?
Well, I can tell you in many of my conversations talking with residents, as well as those that take the effort to come to city council meetings, yes. And there is a definite stormwater flooding issue, and it spreads across the city. It's not concentrated to one particular area. To my comment again about the deer, the water doesn't recognize zip codes, area codes. And so in order to create some sort of a long-term solution, it has to be a multi-city approach. Water runs downhill, unless you're at Magic Mountain and Sandusky, but it has to be managed appropriately. Now, the Ohio Supreme Court just ruled last week, I believe it was, that the stormwater management plan would be taken over by the Northeast Ohio Sewer District. Therefore, they have been charged with creating a storm management program for the area. In the meantime, the city does have some key initiatives that they can focus on to finish up targeted areas within the city to alleviate some issues and then provide a great level of input for the Northeast Ohio Sewer District when they're developing their plan.
Sure.
First, you took great restraint waiting till the fifth or sixth question to hit flooding. I was waiting for that one or two. I'm like, wow, we're not talking about flooding. And to answer your question, yes, it's clearly an issue in the city, and it is a citywide, it's a city issue, in addition to a regional issue, but the city definitely needs to take care of it. And then they've done a lot of things recently over the last few years to make improvements in that area. A number of retention ponds have gone in. Those seem to be helping. The city just bought a new piece of machinery that will actually go in, and basically it's a giant vacuum that will suck out the storm sewers, because the problem is they get clogged with silt and you know, leaves and sticks and all that kind of stuff, garbage, whatever. So this new machine, which in talking with the service director, has been a huge help for them. They just recently purchased it, so that's going to help a lot. The third thing I want to mention is we've got to be, and we have done a pretty good job of this recently, but we've got to be more proactive on the front end. We can't allow, you know, new developments to go in, or even new singular homes to go in spaces where it's going to cause another water issue. So we have to make sure that the city engineers are involved, that we get their buy-in before we start, you know, putting new parking lots or anything that's going to affect water runoff. We have to make sure they're involved with it as well. And as Ms.
Ouch.
Debbie mentioned the NEO RSD is now going to take this over. We need to make sure as they take that over that we still have our hands in the pie, as it were, as making sure that we are still maintaining control of things that are happening in our city.
Mr. Goodwin?
Yes, it's been an issue for the city since before time, and it's something that we've made steady progress in, but we still need to continue that progress for that, even as Northeast Ohio Regional Sewer District takes over that. We need to keep moving forward. That we can't have residents living there in certain conditions, a few of them. It has diminished greatly, I will tell you, as my elected time has gone and we've worked on these issues, it has diminished greatly. And during my time in the past, I know that we spend much time being proactive to make sure that we don't have these future problems. We went storm requirements for new developments. We went from 5-year to 10-year, 10-year to 25-year storm requirements, so that developers that are put in retention basins now, these retention basins are much bigger, they're better built. We have the newest developments. We don't really have many issues, very few issues in our newest developments. But we got to go back. We got to plug all the holes in the dike, and we got to go back there and fix all of these issues. We're chipping away at that, certainly. Finance is the biggest problem, always. Money always is. And you know, as we work with that, we've had a stormwater fee in place for that, and we've also dedicated some money from the general fund from taxation, and we've made that steady progress towards that, you know, those solutions, and we're going to keep going even after, I believe, after, you know, Northeast Ohio Regional Sewer District takes them.
Thank you. Ms. Melnick?
Well, your original question, I believe, was, is this a personal issue or is this a city issue? There are incidences, there are situations that they are private, personal owners' problems, unfortunately. What I'm finding, and I'm sure Glenn and Joe can attest to this, is sometimes residents are purchasing property as is, or they're purchasing property without an inspection, and they're finding that errors were made on their property, whether they got a permit and built something, and sometimes those are causing flooding not only on their own property, but on their neighbor's property. As those things come up, the city tries to do the best that they can within, you know, the rules of the law. There are some issues that are more city-wide issues. When I first started at council, the previous council had voted to install a $4 fee that residents have been paying. We've been using that money to aggressively attack these larger issues. When I first started on council, we kind of made a list of how much they would be, what are the biggest problems, how many people are being affected, and we're at the very tail end of that. Although the county is going to be taking over, what does that mean? We've been talking as a council, that's not going to take care of individual problems or smaller problems. There's a set of rules and guidelines of things that they will cover. So council, I'm sure, will be discussing shortly, what are we going to do? Are we going to be continuing the fee to handle in-house projects so that we can finish off those tasks? That's a conversation I'm sure we'll be having shortly.
Sure. Mr. Price?
June 6, 2006, the city of Broadview Heights was hit with a 100-year storm.
Yes.
It was very bad. There were 376 homes that were reported flooded. A lot of people blaming the mayor. It wasn't the mayor's fault. It was just a lot of bad engineering. The city has long made a lot of strides to create new engineering standards greater than. In fact, we had another 100-year storm less than 2 weeks later. So to go to show the standard is no longer really there. Chris Burwald, former councilman at large, did introduce this utility in 2007. It has done a lot of good. There is measures in place and legislation in place to protect the community, that if we find that it is a homeowner's problem and or a contractor's problem, something that was hit, it's their responsibility. However, we did also take a stride and introduce legislation that if it affected 3 or more property owners, we could get involved. I'm trying to do that same legislation right now, by the way, in the village of Grafton, because it will benefit them. A great piece of legislation put into place in 2005. Craig Makovic actually introduced it along with Sam Allies. So outstanding piece of legislation. And basically, you know, when it comes down to stormwater, you're right, Debbie. Water flows downhill. It comes from North Royalton on to us. We add more to it and give it to Brecksville.
Yeah.
So they have the problem as well. And Brecksville has been blessed with funding that has helped them handling it a little bit faster. And Brad, in your neighborhood, we bought land in 2 places. Well, we bought land. One place was donated land. I don't know if you know it. Your neighbors on West Ridge. Their backyards are in the city of North Royalton. We need to work with them to annex that into the city of Broadview Heights so we can help manage their problem for them in that regards. It's not their fault. It's something that was set up a long time ago. So thanks for asking that question.
Thank you. Does anyone have any response?
I'd like to make a comment.
Sure.
Okay. The one thing that came up recently at a city council meeting that I think would be helpful to the residents is letting the residents know which areas are being targeted for city improvements on a short-term basis. There was a report by the engineering department listing specific streets, specific areas that were on the radar screen to be addressed in the short-term future. I had asked at the city council meeting that that list be presented to the website, and I know that there are certain rules that require the city to reach out to impacted residents. But I think that transparency would be helpful for residents to know that the city is addressing some key areas, as opposed to the city isn't doing anything, why aren't they listening? There are good things happening behind the scenes, and I think getting that message out is key.
Ms. Malnick?
Along with those lines, it's also about educating residents. One of our stormwater management projects, the Vector truck is what you mentioned. This current council fought for that because for a long time we were just leasing it for a month or 2. Now we fought very hard to get it, so we have it 12 months out of the year.
And you're referring to the machine that sucks the...
Yes,
Sucks
Vector
the-
truck, yes.
Yeah. So it basically sucks the
Sediment and silt, yes,
Out
all
of-
kinds of fun stuff that is
out
in.
of the sewer. Okay,
Right.
I just want to make sure everybody
And
knows.
some of them are so high that you could see through the grates that there's dirt built up. That's how deep some of these are. So now we'll be able to do that all of the time, or even rent it out if we need to other communities, and that will be a source of income for us. But the retention basin is also another problem. Recently, the engineering department, they always give us a map and they show us the retention basins, which ones are in good working condition. Some people are buying property with retention basins, but they don't realize that they have to maintain it. And if they don't maintain it properly, then it can't hold the water, and now we start to flood people. And that is one of the problems that council is working on right now, is how do we get individual private property-owned retention basins to comply.
Thank you. Yes.
In regards to the Vector truck, we did have one once before. It became mechanically infeasible
Right.
to keep operating, so they did do away with it. I want to basically voice the importance to it. Those storms, when they hit on June the 6th, 2006, the city of Strongsville was not immune to it. They got hit heavily as well. The first thing they did was bought 2 Vector trucks, 2 crews, put it out there, put a system out there. They still routinely maintain those, the whole community, which is a lot bigger, probably 3 times the size of Broadview Heights, and they reduced their flooding by 98%. That's why it's key to clean those basins and make sure that's being done, and I'm glad that council took the step to make sure that's going to happen again.
Yeah. I want to emphasize that because during my administration, through my administration as mayor, we had that Vector truck and we used it on a daily basis. We had a storm sewer crew and sanitary sewer crew out on a daily basis that worked on all the sanitary lines and the storm sewer lines. And unfortunately, when things got tighter, in the future there, that emphasis disappeared. And when that truck became old and unworthy, it disappeared also. So it's been very much a bone of my contention on the council to insist that we bring that truck back. In fact, I threatened to vote against the budget one year just because I felt so strongly about it. But it's coming back, and certainly I think it's going to help solve a lot of our other minor problems, as part of that. We have a long way to go still, but we're getting near there, and we're working it, and we're going to make it happen. I just want to mention one other thing was that I was proud to be part of a council when I first got on that changed those rules as far as how close in proximity you could build a building to stormwater facilities, and that's made a big difference also in our city for the future.
Thank you. Any other comments?
I have one. Actually, just to let everybody know what Grafton did. A little Grafton, Ohio, put in an they call it an EQ basin. It's a $5 million gallon basin that when we have an over-inundation of stormwater, it pumps all of that, including the raw sewage that gets dumped into the system, into there and holds it in a large 5 million gallon holding tank, and then processes it through its wastewater treatment plant. It has eliminated most of the flooding there as well.
And you know that because you work for the city of Grafton?
Absolutely. I'm very proud of that, and it's something that's going to help us with economic
Sure.
development and future expansion of the village.
Just wanted to let everybody know why you were mentioning Grafton.
Yeah. Well, and as a possibility for Broadview Heights if we should decide to do that as well. Because
Absolutely.
Brecksville put a very large retention basin in Broadview Heights. They bought land in Broadview Heights and dumped their water here.
Right.
So